You're listening to Big World Network.
Just Kill Me, Episode 3, Possibilities. Written by Wendy Herman. Read by Wendy Herman. The unexpected trip to the gym with Talia proved to be more than worth it. Besides the fact that I was impressed and a little relieved with my best friend's current choice of crush, I got a great workout and relished the endorphin rush for quite some time afterward. So far, I still felt different, as if I was finally awake, and I intended to stay that way. I wanted desperately to mention my interest in becoming an FBI agent to her, but I was afraid her preoccupation with Lars would hinder her response. Although I have to say he was quite something. If it hadn't been my first day out of a 40-year coma, I might have felt my pulse quicken when the Vin Diesel-esque god corrected my form during class. I did notice Talia give me a dirty look, like it was my fault I was sucking so badly at Zumba that he felt the need to stop instructing and do something about it. She could have at least pretended to be having trouble if she wanted him to touch her too. Did she really have no clue how to initiate a relationship? That was flirting 101 for Pete's sake. Who was the eligible single gal in this friendship anyway? After the class, Talia mustered the courage to approach him, at my insistence, to tell him how much she enjoyed the workout. He seemed genuinely moved by her comment and actually gave her a quick hug. As she made her way back to me, she could barely contain her giddiness. She wanted to stay for a while, so we decided to pretend we knew how to use the weight machines, which were located in full view of Lars' next class. We claimed a machine that I'm convinced was designed by that Escher guy, and Talia sat while I played the role of spotter. This was as good a time as any to bring up my latest news. So, I had a kind of epiphany last night, if you're interested, I started. Without removing her eyes from the direction of Lars, the god of glistening biceps, she replied, "An epiphany? Do tell." "I'm thinking about becoming an FBI agent." That deserved at least a glance, but I got nothing. "Funny. Really, what was your epiphany?" she responded, sounding incredibly attentive, though I'm pretty sure I could have transformed into a giant purple gorilla and she wouldn't have noticed. "I'm serious, Tal. Rip's going to get me into the training program." I was suddenly more interesting than her new boyfriend, and she turned to me with confusion and a hint of, was that fury? Finally, I had her undivided attention. Good thing. If I didn't get this out of me, I was sure it would burst out on its own, and I didn't think they would let a homicidal maniac into the FBI. "You don't think I can do it?" I accused. She cocked her head slightly, her confusion shifting to surprise, still with that whisper of lividness. "What?" she exclaimed. "Where did this even come from?" I absent-mindedly fiddled with the weight adjuster behind her seat. Maybe it was more than a whisper. "I told you. Epiphany." "Could you be a little more specific, please?" she demanded. "Answer my question," I said flatly. "What?" "Do you think I can do it?" I repeated. "That is not the issue here. You're talking about a complete upheaval of your fairy tale life." So much for whisper. She was now definitely angry. "Aren't you happy? You have everything, you know," she informed me rather than asked. "Most women are envious of you to the point of insanity." Well, I had wanted her complete and total attention, but I did not expect this reaction at all. "Why are you getting so upset?" I asked in a hushed tone, hoping she would follow suit. The patrons, who actually looked like they belonged here, were starting to stare. "Upset? I'm not upset." She was upset. "What will happen to me? To us? You'll be Miss Super Cool Secret Agent, and what will I be?" I realized maybe I hadn't approached this the right way. Talia's life consisted of making sure her two ex-husbands paid their alimony on time and, well, me. And I had just told her I was removing myself from the equation. "Tal, this is something I really want, and it feels so right, just even thinking about it. I promise I will still have time to hang out with you. I will make time. I don't need to see my husband or my kids. All my free time will be yours," I pleaded. There was a smile starting at the corner of her lips now. I grinned back and waited for the storm in her eyes to subside. She took a deep breath and spoke at a more reasonable decibel. "I'm sorry. I just had a minor panic attack," she apologized. After another deep cleansing breath, she said, "I think it's a great idea. They would have to be complete idiots to not want you in the FBI." Thank God her self-diagnosed bipolar disorder sometimes worked in my favor. Deep inside the big ball of crazy that was my best friend was an intelligent, insightful, generous person who just needed a trail of breadcrumbs to find her way back to reality sometimes. I didn't have to guess why she had trouble making friends, but I couldn't live without her. That bliss I'd been bathing in since the previous night washed over me again, and there was that smile, uncontrollable and radiant. "I couldn't wait to tell you. I'm so excited about it, but I really wanted your input. I value your opinion above everyone else's. You know that, don't you?" I responded. She immediately read between the lines. "So what does Trevor think of all this?" It was my turn to take a deep breath. "He thinks it's a bit of a passing fancy. Like that time I decided to learn how to play the guitar, of which he thoughtlessly reminded me." Talia nodded. "Uh-huh, sounds like him. He worships you, you know. He just thinks of you as this Martha Stewart/Betty Crocker wife who wants nothing more than to cater to his every need, which you do every day. You've spoiled him. I think it's high time you let him know you are an independent woman who can have whatever she wants." Wow. That statement might win her best friend of the century, but she wasn't done. "Let me ask you something," she said, but didn't wait for my consent. "If Trevor had told you he was absolutely against you doing this, and I had told you I thought it was a stupid idea, would you still do it?" I knew the answer to this immediately, but I paused to marvel in my friend's ability to read my thoughts. I had asked myself that very same question. "Yes, I would." She grinned from ear to ear. "Then what the hell are you waiting for?" We left the Y, though reluctantly, for one of us, and headed home. I was anxious to call Rip and set up my first interview, or whatever I would be required to do. Whatever it was, I was sure I could handle it. I could handle anything today. I felt like the world was in my corner. Maybe even the universe. I ended up calling Rip while I was still sitting in my car, which was now in my garage. Talia had opted to run home to shower and get ready for the day, but made me promise to keep her posted. When I got his voicemail almost immediately, I assumed that meant he was in an important meeting. So I sent him a quick text and was gathering my things to get out of the car when my phone rang. It was Rip. I answered. "Hey, handsome, thought you were in a meeting." I was, but there is no better excuse to duck out early than talking to you. What's up? It was so easy to remember why I had been attracted to him all those years ago. He always said the right thing. Why couldn't Trevor ever leave a meeting early just to talk to me? "Can you do lunch? I want to talk to you about, what we talked about last night. Do you remember?" I asked. "How could I forget? I thought Trev was going to need the Heimlich," he laughed. I bristled. "Oh, please don't mention the Heimlich. Ever." "Sorry," he said. "I'd love to do you for lunch. Do lunch with you," he joked. "Ha ha. You know, normally I wouldn't allow such inappropriate remarks, seeing as how I'm a married woman, but I'm in such a good mood, I'll let it slide just this once." "Madam, you are indeed a saint among women." I loved it when he broke into his old world speak, and when he called me a saint. By the time I was polished and ready, it was time to meet Rip for lunch. He was already there, sipping on an iced tea, when I arrived at the bustling downtown cafe, my favorite cafe, and he knew it. "I ordered you a Diet Right," he said, pointing to the glass of cola at the place sitting across from him. I sat and took a drink, exaggerating how much I was enjoying it for his benefit. "Better than sex," I teased. I doubt it. But then again, my memory is failing me," he commented. "Aw, is Prince Charming having a dry spell? Elisa not your fairy princess, after all?" He snorted a laugh between sips of tea. "She decided two 22-year-olds were better than one 45-year-old. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. He wasn't losing any sleep over the little Russian girl, I was sure. There was always another slutty fish in the sea for Ty Ripley. You know, if I thought for a minute that you were hoping to settle down and have a few kids with little Nikita, I might feel a slight pang of pity for you, but, I stated, shaking my head slightly. I'll let you and Trevor take care of the whole happily ever after thing. No woman can hold this stallion hostage for life, he replied. Suddenly his cheeks grew red and he took a quick gulp of his iced tea, as if to hide the blush. Blush? Ty Ripley was not prone to blushing, yet I had just witnessed this anomaly firsthand. Maybe it was just a sudden fever. The sound of my husband's ringtone snapped me out of my thoughts. I answered as Rip motioned for a waitress to refill his drink. "Hey, babe, I'm sitting at Ariadne's with Rip. You want to join us for lunch?" I asked. "Actually, I was driving by and saw your car. I'm on my way in now," he replied. "Awesome! See you in a minute." I put my phone back in its special pocket in my handbag and looked up just as Trevor was coming in the front door of the cafe. I was a little surprised he had decided to stop, since he referred to Ariadne's as a chick cafe and balked every time I suggested grabbing a meal there, but I was thrilled to see him, as always. I stood as he approached our table and gave him a solid kiss. He held out my chair as I sat back down, and then sat down next to me after giving Rip's hand a quick shake. The waitress strode over to take our food order, and after Rip and I took our turn, my husband waved her away, saying he would not be eating. "Why aren't you eating?" I inquired after the waitress had walked away. "I already ate," he quipped. I cocked my head in confusion. "What, a man can't stop and see his wife just because?" he asked. "Maybe I missed you." I leaned toward him and we kissed again. "That is so sweet," I whispered. He held my eyes for a moment, but I couldn't figure out what he was thinking. Love, adoration, and something else. Rip apparently thought it was time to remind us of his presence. "So, Trev, your lovely wife and I were just about to discuss her acceptance into the FBI agent training program." "What?" I exclaimed, louder than I meant to. "I'm in, just like that?" I refused to hide my excitement. I was officially a trainee. That was easy. "I vouched for you, and when I told my boss you had applied before, he was intrigued. So I dug out your original paperwork," he revealed. "Are you kidding?" I asked. "From 20 years ago? How the hell did you find it?" 15 years ago, they took all their paper files and input the information into the government computer system. You had a file all along, Rip replied. "The next class starts on the 15th. Can I tell them you'll be there?" "Seriously? Yes, I'll be there. This is so great. Thank you, Rip. You're the best." At this, I stood up and walked around to him. He stood so I could give him a proper hug, which he readily returned. I couldn't believe it. This was really happening. And I couldn't have gotten this far without Rip. How could I ever thank him? Then I realized my bladder was even more excited than I was. Typical. I hoped the FBI wouldn't care about my various lingerings from having 3 children. I prayed that the question, "Do you pee when you sneeze?" would not be part of the entrance exam. I excused myself and hurried to the restroom in the back of the cafe. I did my business, washed my hands, and quickly returned to our table. I desperately wanted the 15th to be here, to be now. How would I get through the next 10 days without exploding? When I returned to the table, however, the mood was not what I expected. The 2 men were sitting as far apart as they could while still in their chairs, looking away from each other, and obviously having just been arguing about something. How dare they ruin my buzz? I was still deciding whether or not to confront them both when Trevor stood and gave me a quick kiss. "I'll see you tonight, honey." And he was gone. Rip chugged the remainder of his iced tea and stood himself. When he came around to give me a friendly hug goodbye, he sighed. "Don't worry, it's nothing you need to worry about, I promise," he reassured as he kissed me on the cheek. "I'll see you on the 15th. He smiled. I was standing at our table alone when the waitress brought the food.
You're listening to Big World Network.